global. Be aware of your surroundings. Nothing's what it seems. Keep your third eye open and protect the seas. Come filled with teens that sit lean and feed for power. So they slave and they sleep for hours. And this thing about us, the almighty king is the dollars. Did nobody learn the economics? Yeah, we need more options, resources, and deeper logic to be more honest and see more depth upon us. That's why I talk like a prophet, speaking in bondage, deep in the science and war with secret alliance. They say the fluoride in the water keep us compliant. I say we in a quiet war, they creeping in silence. Lost in the corporate world and you sleeping with tyrants. It's all cryptic, only if you will understand it. The noble mystic, try to pitch it underhanded. I hope you get it. Arise from the sickness before it spread out like a plague across the planet. Even the medical field feel like the dentist thieves. So many beautiful lies that end in disease. Lives shattered, wise battered. It's a very thin line between civilized and savage. Shots get scattered at night, it don't add up. On the same block they said Black Lives Matter. Police is the cancers here, we need answers. No need for handcuffs, shot him with his hands up. I'm just a smooth shepherd in this fool desert. Teaching all the Jews you learn in school, never. That's why it's more RuPaul's than Umar's. Don't ever let the devils try to fool y'all. The government's behind human trafficking. Little girls snatching the van and never seen again. Crazy.
Mic check, mic check. Thank you for tuning in. This is West Wednesday number 359. And I'm going to turn it over to Tawanda to lead us here. Mic check, mic check.
Tawanda, you're still muted.
Tawanda?
You need to unmute.
No, I'm saying, Ben, the video is not showing up at all. In order for me to share it, it's not showing up at all. Did anybody else see it? Because it didn't show up yet.
Yeah, I don't see it yet either. I was share it on my page.
It's definitely not up. You want to try it again, Ben? Because it's not up.
Hold on. I see it up. I see it up. Bill commented on it already.
Wait a minute. Let me try to refresh my page. Guys, sorry for the technical issues. Give me 1 second. I apologize, but I'm not seeing anything.
What page can we go to get it?
You can search for hashtag West Wednesday on all social media to find it.
Alright, let me see something. Let me try that because it is not showing. Let me see something. It's normally like when I do it, it shows completely up, and it's the only thing that's showing up from earlier was from you at 10:20 yesterday. That's the last video it's showing.
Yep, I see it. We are live right now.
Alright, and how long can I pull it up? You said hashtag.
You can go on my page. You can search for West Wednesday on all social media.
Okay. Maybe I'm gonna have to share it later because it's definitely not showing up, and I have so many people waiting to watch it. That's why it was important. Bill, did you share it on your page yet?
Yeah,
Did
yes,
anybody else share it?
yes, you can go to my page.
All right, let me go to Bill. Let me try Bill's page real fast. Sorry guys for the issues, but I want to make sure everybody's able to see it because I got a lot of people that's actually wanting to watch it. Give me 1 second. I apologize.
But your real name is not Young Savage, is it?
My real name is pronounced Young Savage. It's spelled Jancewicz.
The only reason I'm ticked off that I got the last name Newton and you ended up with Young Savage. You know.
Where did Newton come from? That's what we could dig into.
Hell if I know. I'm certainly it wasn't from Africa.
No, it most likely was not.
If anyone's looking to find the live feed, one possibility is go to my page. My name's Bill.
Bill, say your last name real quick.
I'm also pasting it in the chat for everybody.
Last
What's
name,
your last name? B-E-L what?
BLEICH.
All right, B-L-I-E-C-H.
No, EICH.
You said B-L what?
I'm gonna send you his on your messenger, Tawanda. I'm gonna send you his link.
BLEICH.
All right. Somebody sending me the link now.
Yep, I'm gonna send you his page link. Copy that and paste it here.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens sometimes without a professional news organization. We're doing the best we can, and our content is far better than the professional news.
And keep
Just
in
drill
mind
down
we're in a
on his
pandemic.
page. It's about 3 or 4. It's actually it's the top of his page now.
It's at the
And
top.
then you just hit share to your audience.
All right, so they playing with my face, so I got someone to have to go through after we get done. So we're just gonna get started, and I'll share it a little bit later. But first of all, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to West Wednesday. This is week 359, day 2,513. So we've been fighting nonstop, not just for my big brother Tyrone West, but for all the victims of police brutality and or murder. And just to let you guys know real fast, my brother Tyrone West was brutally executed right here in Baltimore City. And we still have no accountability whatsoever. And it's just really sad. We have a whole list of guests tonight, so I'm just going to kind of dive in. And I'm going to start off first with my sister from Cleveland, Ohio, my sister Alicia. She lost her son. He was only 17 years old. He was killed 13 years ago on March the 23rd, 2007. He was killed by an officer named John. So she will take it from there because I respect her time because she is chiming in from her workplace now. So I'm going to hand it over to our sister Alicia. Mic check.
Mic check, mic check.
My check.
My name is Alicia Kirkman. My son was killed 13 years ago by the police officer John Lundy. The encounter that my son had with John Lundy, you heard my son on the 911 tape stating, "My hands are up, my hands are up." You heard John Lundy stating, "Put your hands up, put your hands up." My son was stating, "I swear to God, sir, my hands are up. I don't got nothing. I'm not doing nothing." And all of a sudden, you heard gunshots. The phone went dead. My son ended up dead. John Lundy shot my son's car up 8 times from the driver's side. John Lundy said he tripped on the sidewalk. But the case was never investigated. Only thing they did was did a settlement and ruled it justified. So what I want today is accountability. I want my case reopened for my son. And all 91 cases that we have in the city of Cleveland, I demand that all 91 cases be reopened in the city of Cleveland, because we have not, no one have not been charged for murder in the city of Cleveland. 91 cases, no one has been charged for killing no one. Unbelievable. But I'm quite sure a majority of them have been paid off. How could you pay any family? I never understood it. How could you pay anybody and you haven't even investigated the case? I never understood it in the beginning, and this was 13 years ago. And I've been fighting for 13 years. And I'm going to continue to fight. My baby is gone. So, therefore, I'm fighting for everybody's child. But I demand that my case be reopened, and I demand that everybody's cases be reopened. You know, because you heard my baby on the 911 tape, and you're actually seeing them doing the killing now. And they're still not arresting these cops. I mean, what do it take? They talk about them burning down the city. Come on now. The mothers, we're burning each and every day. We're burning on the inside. We don't have our loved ones. We don't have our babies. My baby was 17. He had babies. You know, his kids was 1. You know, now they're talking to me about their dad. They don't know anything about their dad. And it just hurt, you know. Everyone knows racism existed years ago. It didn't just start. It's been happening. I don't know what to say. I don't know. Because I've been saying the same thing for 13 years. And people been saying it before me. So the issue been going on for many years, for centuries. I don't know what to say. But I thank you, Tawana, for having me on. I thank you.
It's all right. Mic check.
Thank you. Mike check. Thank you so much for sharing this, sister. That is like really heartbreaking, and it's just really sad. And my sister couldn't have said it no better. Like, it's just sad. Like, I feel like I echo her, and basically saying that all these cases do need to be reopened, revisited, and folks need to be held accountable, because at the end of the day, murder is murder. So while we have the whole world watching, right, at this moment, we demand accountability. We demand that they reopen every last case, because it's just really sad. Like, so these years go by, she's still without her son, and that is the most heartbreaking thing ever. No mother, no father, no sister, no brother. No one shouldn't have to endure this type of pain. I wouldn't wish anyone into this club, this family. It's just not right. So to actually fight for over 359 weeks nonstop, and we still have the same thing with the different victims. And I'm really happy tonight that we finally saw them like charge somebody in Mr. Brooks' case. Basically, that happened in Atlanta. You know, this man decided to pull over because he was inebriated. And he did the most, to me, the most adult thing, the most right thing to do. Let me not drive. Let me just sleep this off in the Wendy's parking lot. And then he got out real respectful and all that. And everybody want to say, oh, well, he grabbed the taser. First of all, you wasn't him. Who are we to judge anybody? You didn't get tased. Y'all don't know how that feels. Apparently, basically the taser was empty. The taser which he grabbed when he was fleeing was like, this man was afraid. He knew he was going to die. Until you're placed into a predicament where you know that death is going to follow, we need not say anything. But yet, today, and I want to be real clear, today marks 5 years since Dylan Roof killed those people in Charleston, killed church members. He sat and he prayed with them. Did they kill? He just got finished murdering. Are you kidding me? He killed 9 people after he sat in a black church and prayed with them. He didn't even know them. He killed them for their skin color. And so people make me so sickening and mad, and they say, well, as if, Mr. Brooks got what was, like, he deserved it. Nobody deserves to be brutally murdered. So if they want Dylan Roof to accountability where he sets a death sentence, and he should, because that was beyond a hate crime. How horrific was that? But the fact that he was able to not only go to jail, they took him in with a bulletproof vest on, they fed him Burger King. But yet they killed my brother Tyrone West on the street for no reason. They killed my sister Alicia's son for no reason. The list goes on. This is real. We cannot no longer accept this foolishness and then let them throw, oh, well, you guys are murdering each other. That has nothing to do with anything. It's all together, but at the same time, it's still different. The difference is these killer cops don't get any time. It's hard as hell fighting this ugly system. The difference is it's modern day lynching. We know who these killers are. We know what they did, but yet they won't do anything. That's what it's about. And no further ado, I'm going to bring up my next sister, and her sister, is Chantel Davis. She was murdered. Just imagine. And her 5-year commemoration was this June the 14th, right? 5 years since Chantel Davis was executed. I done met her sister Natasha many times. We been, in New York City together, just on different platforms. And I wouldn't wish this on anybody, even though that was her younger sister. That stuff hurt. But just imagine you're driving and some maniacs start chasing you, and you're a woman. Women are the most neglected, the most unprotected creatures there are alive. It's disgusting. But just imagine a woman, you see maniacs right behind you, fast speed, not in a marked car, and an unmarked car, and you're chased, and then you crash into a pole. And then you're able to, like, oh my God, I'm not dead. So you see your life flash before your eyes at a crash site, right? And you make it out, and these killer cops come over, don't give you a chance to get yourself together and gun you down, and your final words are, you didn't have to shoot me. Are you freaking kidding me? Enough is enough. So I'm going to bring my sister, and I'm sorry, I'm just all over the place today because this breaks my heart. I'm sick of it. Like, y'all don't know how it feels to lose a loved one in such a brutal way. This is not your loved one just laid down and had a heart attack, or your loved one died from, unfortunately, COVID-19. Because at the end of the day, you're going to still be sad. You're going to mourn forever. But when your loved one is murdered, just snatch, and then they play you like, oh, your loved one got what him or her deserved. That is so cruel. Y'all don't understand, and I don't want y'all to have to walk over this threshold and feel this pain. Y'all wouldn't understand. It makes no sense, but it needs to stop. So no further doing this. And after I bring my sister up, I'm going to bring Alton Sterling's, his auntie up. I met her, and Alton Sterling would have been 41 years old on the same day that marked the 5-year commemoration of Chantel Davis. So when I looked and seen that, like, his life was snatched, 41, my brother was only 44 when he was gunned down. This is my older big brother, like a father to me, just murdered for no reason. And so when I think of all these atrocities that are happening, I just want y'all to sit by, but I want y'all, if y'all can, to sit by and feel our pain. Take it all in. And we got to work together to change this. So no further ado, I'm going to bring up my sister, Natasha. Mic check.
Oh, thank you so much, sis. Thank you. I would say I'm happy to be here, but under these circumstances, it's not a happy thing, right? So I'm Natasha. I'm the eldest sister of Chantel Davis. And this Sunday was 8 years. She was killed in 2012. And through these 8 years of fight back, it has just been a complete runaround. We've been through 3 district attorneys in Brooklyn. The first district attorney was Charles Hines. If you know anything about Brooklyn and DAs, he ended up being corrupt and lost. I mean, he was DA for like 20 something years, and he ended up being corrupt. He lost an election to Ken Thompson, but before he lost his election, my sister was killed. He brought us into his office and said, "You know what? We're going to investigate this." Months passed, a year or so went by, an investigation happening, so we thought, but come to find out, he closed the case and didn't notify us, but kept telling us that it was being investigated. He ran up for a re-election, and Ken Thompson won over him. Ken Thompson used Brooklyn families to help push his campaign, promising that he will look into all cases. Ken Thompson won, went into office, and then went silent. We couldn't get a meeting. We didn't know how to reach him anymore. He wasn't answering calls, nothing. Ken Thompson then dies. Then we have his successor, Eric Gonzalez. Eric Gonzalez comes into office, trying to get meetings, trying to find out what happened. Not until right before the 6-year memorial of my sister's murder, Eric Gonzalez was cornered at a function by an organization that I work with, and they said, "Listen, you're gonna give the Davis family a meeting. They need to know what's going on." So about 2 months before the 6-year memorial, we had a meeting, and I sat in that meeting with my family, was able to watch the video of my sister. My sister's car, she went around a bus that was going slow and crashed into a pole. Unmarked car pulled up on her. My sister was dead within 47 seconds of crashing and being shot. And by the own officer's account, Detective Atkins, okay? In my neighborhood, he's known as Bad Boy Atkins. And if anybody has seen Denzel Washington play in that movie Training Day, that's exactly how Detective Atkins is known in our neighborhood. Exactly. And in his own account, the only thing that I heard was that what he had told the paper at the time was that his gun discharged. Not that there was a chase, not that he was following her, none of that stuff. He reached into the vehicle, trying to pull her out, and the gun discharged. But what happened? She was dehumanized in the media, dehumanized all over social media. Before we knew what was going on, it was all over the papers. And my sister laid in the street on a Thursday evening, right Sunday, bleeding out. No one knew who it was, and all whatever was reported was that it was some 30-year-old woman. And I live 4 blocks away from where it happened. And I came home and I'm saying to myself, why is the bus, like the major bus, going down my street? Like, this is so strange. I don't know, but I went on with my day. This is like 5 o'clock. I came from work. Then I went back outside. I'm like, hey, this bus is still going on. I didn't get the call until 11 o'clock that night. After she went to the hospital as a Jane Doe that my sister was dead. And that night that it happened, the community took the streets because they knew it was unjust. They knew she didn't deserve that. But in the media, she was already on Channel News. Like, my kids was on Facebook, was on social media at the time, seeing the picture, but not knowing it's their aunt that is actually dead on the ground. And a bunch of running around. Went to the hospital. We weren't allowed to see her. They had us there for hours. Then they told us to come back the next day. And, you know, that was just the night that it happened. When I finally got the meeting and saw, Ken Thompson says to me, he says to us, he says, you know, it's very unfortunate what happened to your sister, but I don't believe that it was intentional. Therefore, the statute of limitation has expired on the case. And we were fighting for 6 years for answers. And he tells us that there's nothing else that he can do. So this was right before the 6-year memorial. And now we're stuck. It's like, what I do now, I know that I can't get justice for my sister, but I vow that this cannot continue. I will fight for every family that comes after so that they could get the proper answers. Because what I've been seeing in this 8 years of struggle, is that they've gotten wiser. They've gotten wiser, but we need to be one up. When my sister died in June, 4 months before that, in the Bronx was Ramarley Graham. Okay, in Ramarley Graham's case, if they didn't have that video in the house that the police tried to that didn't know was there, the cameras rolling, we would have never known that they were not chasing him like they said. Because originally the first story that came out was that they were chasing him down the street. That's the video. They put this out in the newspaper. They put this video out on the news also. And then another video came out from the homeowner. It was like, that's not the hoodie that he was wearing, and everything cleared up. Fast forward to my sister, they took every camera from the store owners around, and they even took people's cell phone so that we wouldn't see exactly what happened. 6 years later, I don't know if it was a edited video version, but all I know is I saw my sister crash a vehicle and dead within 47 seconds. And I will never rest, and I will never stop trying to clear her name, because of course she was dehumanized and made to believe like, oh, this is what was supposed to happen to her because of something in her past. But no, we're not standing for that narrative. We're not going for it no more. So that's my vow. It just makes me so angry.
Yeah, sis, and I definitely feel you, and I apologize for getting the years wrong. I said 5. The time just goes just like that. And I'm looking at my brother, it's going on 7 years, and it's still the same game. Like I said, they try to bring up our loved one past as if they're justified them getting murdered. I don't care what past history my brother or your sister had. That had nothing to do with the day when the killer cop came out and assassinated them. Not assassination, let's be clear. When it just needs to stop. But I think while we got this momentum going, forget all that, because to me it's no statute limit on murder. So while we got this movement going, we gonna make sure that they open up all the cases. Like they talking about just the funding, the police worldwide, and they got people like Al Sharptons of the world leading these families down the wrong road. You can't have these house Negroes, and yes, I said it, these are my views, nobody else, but these are my views. I feel some type of way, and I'm gonna say what I gotta say, because I don't get nobody's paycheck fund or nothing. I keep it real. So with me saying that is with him, they don't know. At first, he used to be a real freedom fighter when he first started out. But then he got going off, sold out, being FBI informant and all this, he's now there to send these families down the wrong road and try to do this thing. Oh, let God just keep the peace. I mean, he worrying about a paycheck. He don't care about this thing. He didn't lose nobody to these killer cops. So let's be crystal clear with that. So while the momentum is going, we're going to push it all the way through. And our demand, not only about the defunding part, to me, I'm past reform. We need to transform. We need to knock it down, build it back up, and start holding all these cops accountable. Until we do that, they're going to keep going. Just like we're at George Floyd, sis. And that yet, but Brooks just got killed the other day. And the whole world is watching, so they don't care. This is what they normally do, but they're not used to being charged. And so if we start charging them courts like they charge us, you will see that they will think twice before they try to play sports and kill us. They kill us for sports. Let's
start charging and taking that pension away. Maybe the pension needs not to be there anymore. A lot of times, like they dehumanize our siblings, our loved ones, and the officer, Detective Atkins, that killed my sister, he had several lawsuits that the city had already paid out on. And then he had more pending. Like, why was he on the street?
I think they love these killers because in my brother's case for Ruiz and Chapman, repeat violent offenders, they got numerous suitcases out on them. They almost killed people days leading up to my brother's murder, but yet they get full immunity. They love these killers. But we're saying enough is enough. We don't love these killers. We don't love them at all. So I just want to thank you for sharing. If you want to tune in, keep on tuning in. If you got to go, I definitely understand. But we're going to get accountability, not for just Alicia's son, but for your sister, for my brother, for Alton Sterling, for all the victims, for everybody. Anthony Anderson, Freddie Gray, everybody. They're not going to keep playing with us because it's going to come a time that if they don't, They talking about stuff burning down, and I don't condone violence. But at the end of the day, people are beyond target. We're beyond federal people,
Yeah.
and we're not asking nobody to maneuver anything. All we ask them to do is be fair and transparent and hold these killers accountable. Put them in a cell block. That's all we ask. It's an easy fix. It's an easy
That's
fix.
right. I take after you. We won't stop until killer cops are in cell blocks.
Man, hallelujah. Yeah, so speaking of which, I'm going to bring my sister up. Vita, this is the auntie of Alton Sterling, and when I seen that video, that crushed me, like literally, and like even with your sister, that crushed me because that happened before my brother, and I was thinking, but then you get the media, they be lying. You know what I'm saying? They made it seem like when I heard about your sister, I'm not even gonna lie, I thought your sister died from just crashing into that pole. Never knew that this detective, this murderer, right? Never knew that he killed her. You get what I'm saying? So they like, I'm telling you, the media is very dangerous. They can make innocent people look guilty and guilty people look innocent. So, but I've been with you, and I knew that something didn't sound right, and I was destined to find you, and we right here together, and we gonna fight this thing to the end, my queen.
That's
We
right.
got this.
That's right.
Been tough to fight back. So, no further ado, I'm gonna bring up my sister next. Mike, check.
Mic check, mic check.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but we cannot see you.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. Is that it?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, go ahead. We can hear
Okay.
you.
Hello.
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Alton Sterling. You ready?
So yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. I'm the auntie of Alton Sterling, who was murdered in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, July the 5th, by these racist police officers here. Alton was murdered, and they played with my family the whole case, because let me tell you something, when they kill our family members, what they do is they divide the family. They try and divide the family. And I heard you talking about Al Sharpton. Well, Al Sharpton is a snake. And see, if we don't cut the heads off these snakes, they're going to continue to rob these families. But it's hard to get into these families when they lose their loved ones because there's no trust there. So it's very hard to talk with them. So we have to wait until they find out for themselves. And that's so sad. But I dismissed all of them, from Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton. I dismissed every one of them. They couldn't talk to me, so they went to the next person, which is my baby sister. And they used her up as much as they possibly can. But I don't know. It's just crazy. They still killing us, and nothing's being done. When they killed Mr. Floyd, they haven't mentioned Alton's name here in Louisiana. Not one time have they mentioned my nephew's name. They stole his life right here, and they have not mentioned his name. Not once. Not once. We got Black Lives Matter going around shutting stuff down and going back doing their dirty deeds because they're the same thing like Al Sharpton here in Louisiana. You know, they're evil-hearted and they rob the people. But not one time have they mentioned his name, and my heart is broken behind that. But it really doesn't matter because I can call his name all day long, and I can get on social media and hit 1 million people in a heartbeat, versus them going on TV demonizing, you know, what Alton stood for and his life. Alton was a very good person. You know, he was a nice person, and he did what he could for anybody that came along. You know, that's why the communities came out the way they did, because they didn't just come out because Alton was murdered. It came out because they loved him. And it's a big difference, you know, versus the people from out of town came because they saw the video. But the community came out because they loved Alton. And it's so sad that we got our mayor elected, Sharon Weston Broome. We got her elected, and she got right in there and turned face. She turned face. She did not mention my nephew, and still have not mentioned what they did to Alton Sterling. And that's really sad, but it's okay. Like I said, I'm connected all over the United States and some countries, and I try to do everything I can to get them right now to open up not just Alton's case and DeMario's case, but to open every case. They need to open up every one of these cases, and we need to go back as far as time will permit us to go back and get these cases open.
Amen. Sis, I'm gonna let you know, and I'm gonna be sending you the flyer too, because right now I'm with some organizers, and we're organized. We're going to Minneapolis next month on the 12th, right? And we're gonna take over everything. Like, we're gonna run all the Al Sharptons off, and if we even going to his march, we're gonna have the last word, because he's not gonna lead our families no more down a dark street and sell us out. We're not having none of that. But as a part of that movement, I'm gonna send you the flyer, and they also providing financial help, because I'm definitely going to need it, because I ain't got no money to fly me and my daughter. But we definitely going. We going to be there. I'm going to definitely share the flyer with you and all the queens that are on tonight. I'm definitely going to make sure y'all get this information. But we're going to Minneapolis next month. It's called the Mothers on Minneapolis and Family Members that lost the victims of, through police brutality. And our demand is justice for all. Let's be clear, justice for all. We want them to go and open every last case. We don't care how many years ago it was. Every case. So we definitely got you. I'll be sending you that information. We're going to burn the streets up. We're not playing with them. So thank you.
I just left Minnesota, and we tore it down. We got results. That's what we have to do. We have to make them hear us, because just doing a peaceful protest, they can't hear you. You got to make them hear you. You got to stay there. You got to sleep on the yard. You got to make them hear you, because they can't hear you.
Right.
But when you disturb their day, when you make it uncomfortable for them, they're going to stop and say what you want. Eventually.
Vita, I just like to say that I spoke with someone from Louisiana that told me that the school children across the street from Alton had a deep respect for him and loved to come out on their lunch break and talk with him. And I also heard that the store owner, where he was murdered out in the front, that the store owner also had a deep respect for him. And when the police came and tried to confiscate the videotape of their murdering Alton, the store owner locked himself. Tell me if the story is right, but I heard that he locked himself in the back so the cops could not get to him until he made a copy of that video, so the family could have the video before the cops confiscated it. And those two stories were very inspiring.
That's absolutely correct. Yep, they're correct. Every bit of it. When they killed Alton, the people was out there passing the phones and everything, and they gave me the phone. I sent the phone to one of my godsons. He's a rapper. I sent it to him, and he put it on his page, and it went viral. It went viral within 24 hours. I had 2,000 people standing on the ground with me. But you know what I say? I've never seen the video, because it's going to change me. It's going to change who I am. I love my family. I'm my family's ride or die. I don't want to see that. I don't ever want to see them take his life, because it's going to change who I am. And I have to remember that I'm a woman of God. In spite of all the stuff that we're going through, we still have to acknowledge who Christ is. So I never ever want to see that. But my nephew, my godson, went through a lot. They fired him off his job. He was an engineer. He worked on airplanes. They fired him off his job. They locked him up. His name is Chris Leday. He went through hell and high water, but he was never ever recognized, because he didn't care, because he loved Alton. He didn't care. As far as the store owner is concerned, let me tell you something. He was getting ready to close his store down the next day. The very next day, he had 4 bags of potato chips in there, and he had some bread and ice in there. That was it. Today, he owned 15 stores. Alton's kids are suffering. They don't have anything, not one dime, because all of those GoFundMe accounts that everybody was setting up, none of that money went toward my nephew's kids. I don't know who did it. I don't know who got all that money, but not one penny went toward Alton's children. And that made me want to cry, because I mean, you can't do that. You just can't. You can't live off of blood money like that. You can't do that.
I'm sorry, sis, and I'm sorry that happened, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I know my sister Alicia left off or whatever because I know she was at work. But is there any way that we can support you? Like, do you have any like information like for us like PayPal, Cash App? We know that Father's Day is coming along, and I just don't know, and I'm too up for my own brother's kids because I don't know what to say to them. Like, what can like I know I'm auntie and I'm the best aunt I could be, but I'm not their father. They took his life. They took their father away. I don't have nothing to say. Like, so a day that used to be memorable and enjoyable for them to be with their dad and do little things and bring them a card, they don't have that moment. That was next. So I just want to
Yeah.
ask you any way we can support you.
Well, I work very hard every day, Monday through Thursday, to take me from state to state to get what I got to get to where I have to go. So I don't really have anything like that set up because it's really not about the money, but it's just about me getting justice for my nephews. Does that make sense to you? It's really not about.
I'm right there with you, sis, because that's why I don't never ask nobody, because it's not about the money. But I do know, especially at times like this, and we trying to get it, we can help you out in any way. Just let me know if it's a petition, like whatever you need to, you can think on it, but whatever you need us to do, let me know, and I'll start sharing out the information even after this, after today. Like, it don't end. Like, West Wednesday never ends. So just think upon how we can help you out. But I think the biggest moment where we all at is basically when we open these cases back up. That's the biggest help. That's what I'm going for, the gusto. I'm going all I feel like I'm running with the ball, and you can't stop me. I feel like I'm a football player. I got this ball. I'm not dropping it until we get accountability. It ain't even no negotiating. It ain't none of that. It's just sad. And at the end of the day, like my brother Boom said, we got. The people don't understand how it feels to have your loved one murdered. Like you, I still want the tape of my brother being murdered, but ain't no way in hell you could ever pay me to watch that video. So if somebody got the video of my brother being murdered, I only want it because I want accountability for my brother. But I would never want to see my brother get killed. I would never.
Don't watch it because it will change who you are. I'm trying to remain focused because this fight is going to be a long, hard fight, and I have to remain focused. I can't. That video will make me weak. It will break me. I know it'll break me because I love my nephew. Yeah, I don't ever want to see that. I don't ever want to see somebody taking his life because it's going to change me. It's going to really change me because at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, I am my sister's keeper. My sister died and she left her kids on my watch.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sis. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's definitely hard, but I tell you, all these tears gonna pay off. Like I'm telling you, like I said, I got this ball in my hand and I'm running with it. Like I'm gonna run it home. I'm gonna run it home for Chantel Davis. I'm gonna run it home for Alton. I'm gonna run it home for Freddie. I'm running it for Anthony Anderson, Jamal. I'm running it home for everybody. You hear what I'm saying? I'm running it home for the victims that we don't even know about. The victims that they never talk about, the unknown victims that never get any type of media. I'm running this ball all the way. I'm running this ball. We can't get no more. We're going to get it.
That's right.
And I wanted to mention, too, that I saw the saddest thing on the news. There was a lady, her name was Miss Brown, and she was talking about on June the 5th, in 2010, her husband Tyrone, and I remember this case, but they, like I said, the media show you something and snatch it away. But in 2010, her husband, which his name Tyrone Brown, he was a Marine or whatever, and she was more so worrying about him, like getting killed overseas and things like that. So he's home, he's at the nightclub. Him and his sister go to a nightclub right here in Baltimore City, and he, for whatever reason, he felt the behind of a young lady, right, that was in front of him. That was in front of him. He felt her behind. And long story short, her boyfriend or whoever this maniac was, this killer cop, and let me look at his name real quick. His name was Deshaba, if I'm saying it correctly, but Deshaba turned around, got him away from the crowd, and he told like his sister to stand back because he didn't want. He think he could talk like man, like he apologized, and everybody heard him tell the young lady, "I'm sorry." You know what I mean? Why did he take him in the alley and unloaded on him? He shot at him 13 times. All but one bullet hit this man and killed him, executed him right here in Baltimore. And it was just sad because they were following and they were saying like how his daughter, his youngest daughter, just graduated from high school with all these honors, and he's not there to see it. And all these dads are gone now with Father's Day. All the moms, the potential moms like Chantel, you know, a sister or whatever. I don't know if she had kids or not, but just gone before they can even have a family, or the ones that do have family. And people need to realize that these are serious issues and we're not playing. And I just want to throw that out there real quick. And then I also wanted to throw out there that finally now where the world is watching changing things. So I don't know if you heard about the Aunt Jemima thing. They're supposed to be renaming that, taking that off of it again, renaming that. But that thing been on the market since God knows when, since I was little. I remember
That's right.
pancake box jokes on it, but now they taking it off after all these years or whatever. And speaking of which, I wanna and I'm sorry to be flipping around, but I got so much to unbag right here. But I just want to give a big shout out to Councilman I'm sorry, Ryan. I want to give a shout out to Ryan because Councilman Ryan Dorsey, he's basically, while we're basically like talking about renaming things, what he's doing, he just today, because I was talking to him last night, and thank God that he put in for a bill to rename the city property, and it's basically the Columbus Monument. It's the Columbus Monument, and it's that big thing. They got his head knocked off like 2 years ago, or whatever. It's all gone drive in Baltimore, but he wants to rename it, and the significant part, he wants to rename it for police violence and the victims. He want to make that memorial for us, for all of us, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So I'm just telling everybody paying, because when they start to put the bill in already, so when we have the hearing, I'm going to tell everybody to come down to City Hall with me, because that would be basically, you know, great for us. You know what I mean? To have something to let them know that this is real. So again, thank you for sharing. Anything else you want to share, sis?
I'm with Donna Chelsea. Do you know Donna Chelsea?
That name sounds familiar.
I think Donna Chelsea lives in Alabama or New Orleans. She's all over the place. We were trying to get the families in Louisiana to go to Washington D.C., but now we're looking for a state to go to so we can do just what you're getting ready to do on the 16th.
Nice.
You said on the 16th?
You said the 16th?
What day are you gonna go to Minnesota?
So basically, he just put the bill in today. So I'm not sure, like it just in. So once I get all the information, I'll let you know. But the bill just got introduced today.
Okay.
And then they'll have the hearing, and when that hearing comes, I'll definitely let you know. Absolutely.
One thing. Can I get a question in first before she goes?
Oh, hey, JC.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Like, glad to be back here. I haven't been here for a little while. I've been, doing my food thing, and I wanted to touch base first. Alton Sterling's auntie. What's your name?
My name is Vito.
Vito.
Vita.
Hey, Vita. Hi, I'm JP. Yes. I want to tell you, I am of all of the cases that I've seen, right, of the videos that I've seen of everything. His case touched me more than anyone else's. Like, there's something about the way that the way that he went out that just like hit me. And I don't think I've ever told anybody this, but that case was just like the way when I watched that video, it just really stuck with me. And so I wanted to just let you know that one thing I'm doing right now. I wanted to just tell you I would like to get your permission to get your information from Tawanda. I'm coming to Louisiana from Baltimore soon. I'm a documentary producer.
Okay.
I think I can help your family. Do you have his children? You have his children?
No, his kids, they're with their mothers.
Okay.
They're with the mothers, but you know, they're suing for. They're not so much concerned with all the stuff when you saw them on TV and everything with the president, all that. That's all a bunch of lies.
Yeah.
Even Cameron, all that stuff that was all make believe, all that was just a bunch of lies.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they told them to say. They couldn't be themselves.
Okay.
You see me on there, you saw me kicking, screaming, and cussing.
Yeah.
That's me. That's who I am. I'm not trying to change for anybody.
Yeah.
But they're only fighting. They don't care whether Alton lived or died. They only want money.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they want. Or well, two of the baby moms, they just want the money. They don't really care. And I was giving them money until I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute. I'm much older than y'all. What's wrong with you when you can't get up and go get a job? Why you just sitting here? Why you just sitting down? Get up, go get a job. Ain't nothing wrong with you. You and Alton was not going together. None of this. Get up, go get a job. Do like you was doing before they killed Alton.
Yeah. So.
You know, I don't have time with all that fake stuff. So they will come here and if they need something, I'll do it. They need a car notes paid, I'll pay it. They need money for clothes, I'll buy them. But as far as giving them money, I ain't going to the casino.
I got you. So I would like to connect with you though when I come there. I'm coming down to do some shooting and to meet with some jazz artists down there, probably within the next month and a half or so. And I'd like to connect. I'm going to be in New Orleans, but Baton Rouge is what, like an hour and a half away, right? Hour and a half away.
45 minutes.
Okay.
Just
good.
45 minutes.
All right. I would like. Is it okay that I get your information from Tawana so I can?
Absolutely.
I'll reach out to you. Okay. And really, just like my heart is with you for what he went through. Like it was not pretty. And one thing that I do want you to know is that dude was a fighter. Even though they had him down on the ground, he did not go out like. He went out fighting, you know, even though he went out the way that he did, he went out fighting, and I can see that fight in you, you know, like that. So I just really appreciate that, because I want to, if anything ever happened to me like that, I would like to go out like that too, and not in some kind of docile way. Just let me go out kicking and screaming and fucking fighting my ass off before my last breath.
Right.
So that's what he did.
That's right.
So that, it really touched me. How you know, who he was, and all I know about him is that moment. That's all I know. But that moment told me a lot about who that man was. That man was a fighter. And so just really all that you're through, all that you're going through, all that you will go through for the rest of your life because of that happened to him. I'm really sorry that you have to go through all of that. Just really sorry. And it's like I just wanted you to know that it made a huge impact on me. He that moment, seeing him, it made a huge impact on me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you, Sister Queen, for fighting. And I wanted to know, is Natasha still on? And is Alicia still on? Because I know Alicia was at work. I know she had to jump off. Is Natasha still on, or did she have to leave off?
Somebody's still there.
Natasha's here.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
So, hey, sis, I can hear you now. So, could you let everybody know how we can help you out? Because I appreciate your fight. You're so strong. Like, whatever way, it's a petition, if it's financial, like, whatever way we can help, please, like, share some information if you have it available.
Normally we have a memorial basketball tournament. With COVID and the pandemic, the basketball tournament don't look like it's happening. This year would have been the 9th year. It's usually August, first weekend in August. And it's we raise funds, and we have about 150 kids play between the ages of 11 to 18. Play, no fees or anything like that for them. Whatever money we raise, we put it back into the tournament. So we buy jerseys, trophies, food all day long, just to memorialize and uplift my sister and all victims, but specifically my sister and Kimani Gray. You know, he was 16 years old. He was murdered 9 months after my sister by the same unit from the precinct. So his family and my family, we do that memorial basketball tournament. So if you could follow Justice for Chantel Davis Facebook page, you know, whenever we're doing something like that, we do like our fundraiser, you know, it's always helpful. But this year is up in the air. This year probably won't have the tournament, we'll probably do something like a barbecue in the,
Okay.
just to,
Okay, they go.
because you know they took the basketball hoops and stuff down. We're not open here in New York. We're still in phase one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Natasha, can you say a word about the role of the Progressive Labor Party in the struggle for your sister?
So, Progressive Labor Party, that's one of the organizations that helped me. I have some really good friends that I've met 7.5 years ago that I consider my family now. Progressive Labor Party here in New York. If I say like I feel I'm down, I just need some type of support, I can call on that organization, any one of them, to assist. Bill, you said you're a part of that organization, correct?
Yes.
So it's a communist. I don't want to talk too much about. I don't know. You know, I know it's a communist organization, and the friends that I have are like my family now. And
Bill.
have taught me really a lot about the system and how to fight back, and how we're gonna need like multiracial unity to fix the system. So those are my people.
Thank you.
I love them. I love them. I don't know what I would do without them, actually, to be honest. So.
Thank you so much, Sister Queen, for sharing that. So, I'm gonna bring up our next guest. I was honored to have two Warrior King brothers, who I considered like brothers of the movement that actually helps us. Like I see these brothers going in. My brother Ken, he been going in all week. Like he's been sharing stuff, checking people. I've been loving it. Like Ken Williams, I definitely want you to stay in there if you can. Hang on and listen to these brothers, like they powerful. So I got my brother Jonathan. He's on here as well. I'm gonna bring him up and following him, because Ken is such a strong act to follow. So I'm gonna bring Jonathan up first. And Jonathan, his bio is so long, so I will let him tell you guys all about himself and what he does fighting for the victims of police brutalities, a whistleblower, the list goes on. So no further ado, our brother King Jonathan. Mic check.
Mic check.
First off, thank you for having me. I will say, you know, this is about I was just telling a colleague of mine, I've done about 20 or 30 of these this week over the last 30 days, and every time I hear these stories from all across the country, it's you know, it's a lot. And so I empathize with what you all are going through, not having experienced justice from a system that calls itself a justice system. I listened to so much of what you just said, and I was taking notes to think about, you know, how can we create solutions to much of what's been said. And I will have you know that I'm the president and the founder of the National Association Against Police Brutality. We're an organization that seeks to educate communities, to empower communities, to seek accountability. We provide services to victims of police misconduct. And when I say police misconduct, I broaden the scope from we don't just handle victims of police killings, we handle victims of police misconduct. And we try to show them how they can go about holding folks accountable. And so with that, we provide victims with legal, spiritual, and wellness help. In a lot of these situations, it's amazing that a family member can experience a death of a loved one shot in their home. The police officer will receive state paid for psychiatric help, mental help, and a family has to wipe the blood up of their loved one in their own house in some jurisdictions. The characterization that you gave earlier, I call some of these killings nothing more than state-sanctioned murders, and that's what they are. They lack due process. Each one of these killings that is done by a state agent, whether they be a municipal police officer or a officer of a state police patrol, necessarily implicates due process. And I think one of the very solutions that we're proposing is that all officer-involved killings need to be at the state level or at the federal level. And I would like to see a task force put together very similar to the National Transportation Safety Board that deploys when an officer kills somebody and starts an investigation that's independent of what the state does. Because the state has actually either permitted or licensed that police officer, and that person is the officer of the state when they commit these acts, okay? And so NAAPD has come up with essentially 20 policies that we have on our page. These are our 20 policy demands. I'd ask for folks to go there. You can find it at naapb.org. And we've thought about this so we've been in existence since 2014. I started the project as a law student at the University of the District of Columbia, David A. Clark School of Law. We started as a very small group just to talk about policy. And when I wrote out my first paper and put it on the website, and I put my phone number on it, the phone started ringing, and people were just calling saying, hey, this happened to me and that happened to me. What can we do? At that time, I wasn't licensed as a lawyer, so I was always finding myself in that precarious position of either, saying, hey, this is where you should go here to find this information about the law. And that was one thing, because I couldn't offer legal advice. And then the other thing was when there were situations where somebody was actually killed, or there was a catastrophic injury, I would refer those off to attorneys that I started building relationships with that were from the National Lawyers Guild. They have the National Police Accountability Project. And so what we did was we sort of, crafted a program that we refer people off to get legal help. And then we also try to we want everybody to understand up front. Sometimes the legal system is not going to offer you a remedy to your situation. And that's just one of the painful realities of what's happening is that, there's two fronts. I hear you all talking about having your cases reopened, and I would fight all the way to the bitter end with getting it, trying to attempt to get a prosecutor to reopen a case, right? So on one side, there's a criminal prosecution that can take place, and most of the families that I've seen involved with some of these, or at least a great deal of them, have had a civil remedy that's been offered to them. But most people aren't interested in money, Most people are interested in seeing their loved one's killer be held accountable by putting him in jail. And I can understand that. They've taken a life, they need to have their life impacted by this. And so we are starting to see prosecutors charge police officers, and it's very difficult to get them convicted in certain jurisdictions. One of the things that I heard earlier is that the media demonizes victims of police misconduct. Whenever I get a report across my desk, we get almost every officer involved shooting across the nation comes through an alert that we have set up. We never listen to the report that comes from the media. I think that one of the better examples of that was, I forget which year it was, I think it was 2015, the Walter Scott killing by Michael Slager down in North Charleston, South Carolina. The night before, the media had run a full coverage of the shooting, and they reported it one way. And then within 2 days later, you actually got to see what really happened. And the media takes all of the information from the police report and just simply regurgitates it. Another thing that's important, we need to set up a legal offense fund. We need to start collecting money to put together, and we need to stop, in my opinion, we need to create a single organization that helps with raising funds, number one, for family, number two, for investigative services like what Ken offers and other attorneys offer, so that we can at least put boots on the ground as soon as that investigation launches. Because here's what's happening, is that when these killings take place, the police department is the first on the scene, and they're the first to mess up the scene. They're the first to mess with the evidence. And we need to have something that's put in place so that when somebody is killed, we can get an independent investigator there on the scene immediately to find out, number one, who has video, where make sure those witnesses don't disappear and get lost or get bullied into not testifying. We have an interest in seeking justice, and we have to be more responsive, quicker to getting people out onto those scenes to actually begin the process of building up cases. When I heard Sister Vita talk about what happened with her brother's case with all these multiple GoFundMe accounts set up, it disturbed me. We took it on as a policy as to never do individual fundraising unless we had a signed contract in place to raise money on behalf of someone, and we just never really followed that down. We never really did it because we saw other people doing that. We always wondered, what happens with those monies? Are they really going to impacted individuals and family members? And you've seen of late national figures talking, being held to account. Some people have raised enormous amounts of money, yet you have family members who are actually living hand to mouth after some of these situations are over. But I hope that we concentrate on a set of policies that we push, because what you're going to see come out of Washington is more of the same. You have a president that signs an act, and he makes an act surrounded by nothing but police officers to hold police officers accountable. There was no family members there. Then you have other congressional members talking about a Justice and Policing Act, but really where the rubber meets the road is at the state and local level, okay? And getting policing as a function of the states. And in order to get this condition changed, the law has to change. And Ken and I will talk briefly. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to talk about this. Is the law that controls whether an officer can use deadly force is Garner, okay? And what that case holds is that it sets the minimum for when he can use deadly force. It sets the baseline requirement. Essentially, what that case says is that if an officer knows that a subject is unarmed, he should not use deadly force. Okay, so if you put that if he knows that a subject is unarmed, he cannot use deadly force. So they've played around with that so much to the point where they play around with what did the officer know at that time. And then the next question is should that officer use that level of force? And that becomes an excessive force question, which is controlled by the O'Connor versus Graham holding, which holds that if the use of force was objectively reasonable, then that officer can use it. And that legal term, objectively reasonable, it creates this amorphous standard that officers know creates a gray area that allows them to basically claim certain things and create a defense for themselves. We need a more finite rule on the use of force. And some have proposed, and we do espouse to this, we want to see a statutory requirement or a statutory layout of when use of deadly force can be used. When you go to most states, you will see it, and when you read it, you get done reading the statute. Like if you read Georgia's statute on use of deadly force, I forget it's OCGA. I'm gonna pull it up and just read it. Georgia's use of it's a person is justified in threatening or using force against another, and to the extent that he or she reasonably believes that such force is necessary to defend himself or a third party. It's OCGA 16-3-21. I remember going through the police academy in Georgia, and when they went over this, most people just turned around and said, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? It creates such a standard, and then they train you with ability, opportunity, and jeopardy. They sort of give you these, if that person has the ability to kill you and they're taking the opportunity and you feel in jeopardy, you can use deadly force. They try to create a formulaic outlay for use of deadly force. But as far as the law is concerned, there is nothing that is formulaic. In fact, it's set up to allow officers to have a basis to use deadly force, because there's this myth that officers need to make split-second decisions to be able to save lives. And Ken's had much more experience than me in law enforcement. Ask Ken how many times he's had to make split-second decisions in policing. And so I think that's a myth. There's a book about that talks about it being a myth. But not to delve off into too many areas, I think that we need to look at a set of policies. You can go on our website at NAAPB.org and look at the 20 policy demands that we put up. You can interact with our organization and help us by becoming volunteers. As I said, in 2014, 15, and 16, we did a lot of work to lay infrastructure down to actually begin to attack this collaboratively. We also thought that there would be a collaborative effort from amongst different groups and organizations around the country. What I was shocked to find out is there's a lot of competitiveness inside the police accountability space, and it creates unnecessary division. Another thing, police accountability will not be had, and change of law will not be had unless it's done through a political process, and any political process is going to require a cohesive group, multicultural group, a group that has all kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds involved in making sure that this political effort is carried forth. We have yet to see that collaboration between multiple races coming together, different racial groups coming together. We are starting to see with this latest killing with George Floyd, we are starting to see cross-cultural collaboration, and we're thankful for that, and we're really thankful for that. As we move forward, we start putting down in the paper what we want out of this. We have to be really succinct, and we have to be really concrete. And I understand that each individual family has an individual interest in getting justice for their particular family member, and that may mean trying to get a case reopened. But I want you to also stay focused on getting the law changed so that we can stop this from happening to other families. And that's, if you have any questions for me, I'll answer them, but I appreciate you having me here today. I really feel bad for a lot of what you all have been through. I mean, and when I tell you, I hear these stories, it has an effect on us. It has an effect on each one of you all going through it, but it has an effect on me hearing it. And I'm sorry for your loss. I'm deeply sorry for your loss. This is a system that calls itself the justice system, and it has delivered injustice to Black and brown people disproportionately. And as I said before, until we change the law, the condition will remain the same.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. There's actually a couple questions online here. One person said, "I still don't understand." You were talking about how officers get mental health exams after shootings, and the person said, "I still don't understand why officers weren't provided mental health exams before they were hired in the first place." And also, there's another question. Do you think that it would be a good idea for an organization such as yours to put together to formalize the fundraising for families so that there is an official place that the monies would go, and so that those monies do get distributed properly, rather than using these large corporations like GoFundMe and other things?
So in 2015, we started building exactly that. And here's how we funded NAAPB. We funded NAAPB with $30 memberships, and starting in 2014. We never got broad support in terms of getting members to join the organization. And so we never paid for any major advertising. But to answer your question succinctly, absolutely, I think that there should be an organization dedicated and have a staff, a paid staff that oversees it. And those need to be contractual relationships. And folks need to stop trusting people who say, "I'm here to help the family." Yeah. And I'm just saying that there's cases down in Atlanta where a family member, there are 3 people that are coming to see you when these killings happen. Okay, number one of my wayward brethren in the legal practice will contact you and say, "I'd like to help you." He may not have any experience in police litigation whatsoever, in police misconduct litigation whatsoever, but he will call you because he believes that this is his chance to make millions off of a police misconduct case. The second person that will contact you will be a media person, and the third person that will contact you will be one of the community activists, social warriors who contact you and say, "I just want to help you advocate for your family." Okay, I call them the trifecta of problems. Okay, and I'll give you one. Look up the Catherine Powers story. A minister came to her family, said that he was going to represent them in helping them get through this situation. And when her settlement came, that minister then sued the family for money for his quote-unquote services. Now, I don't want to mention that minister's name, but you can find it online because it's a matter of public record. I don't want to say I defamed him, but I think, and my personal opinion is, if a minister's there to help you pray, should be no cost in helping pray. Okay? Lawyers who come knocking on your door, they're most of the time not people who are experienced in handling police law litigation. The type of lawyers that this requires are people who have been in this business And understand these are long-term cases. Sometimes they take 3, 4, 5, and 6 years. And all that time, that firm has to be able to carry the costs that are involved with litigating these claims. But to answer your question, yes, there should be an organization that's tasked with that. The NAACP would love to work with a group of families to be able to put together an official place where funding can be done on behalf of a family and given to the family according to a contractual relationship. The second question that you had was about mental health and psychiatric screenings that take place. One of our 20 rules that we have on our website is mandatory. Let me look it up. Mandatory. All of them are mandatory, but we want mandatory screening. Hang on one second. We want mandatory evaluations of cops to happen every single year. And that involves mandatory psychological evaluations, mandatory drug screenings, and mandatory steroid testing, okay? And we want the drug screening and the steroid testing to take place at random, okay? And if you come up hot on it, you're gonna lose your job. We also believe that it should not be up to an agency to determine whether or not they can afford to send their officers to get psychological screenings before they get hired. It should be state law that every one of them should be hired before they become an officer of the state. As it sits right now in most states, it's up to the agency to determine whether they want to have that officer evaluated psychologically. And the smaller the agency is, because there's a cost involved, oftentimes these smaller agencies don't get it done at all. I'm dealing with a police agency in right here in Prince George's County that absolutely should have not hired any of the police officers that were there at all. Yet they're there, and they're going to be facing, they are facing a lawsuit right now for the things that they have done. But they should have never been hired. They came from other departments with histories, and those histories were known, but they have not. They have never been psychologically examined, and if they did, they could have been found to not have been fit for law enforcement duty. I'm sure of it. So
I have a question. The police officer Salamoni who shot my nephew, he had an evaluation, a psych evaluation, and they said he should have never been a police officer. They did absolutely nothing until after he committed murder. And then the chief of police told my family last year, he didn't call us and tell us, he told us on TV, he's sorry and he apologized for what happened to Alton, but it was wrong. And I called his phone and told him to kiss my ass. Yeah, that's not enough. He needs to go to jail for what he did. Your apology is not good enough. I appreciate your apology because you're the only one out of all of them that said that you were sorry. But guess what? At the end of the day, kiss my ass. That's not enough.
That's right. Fuck you too.
Yep.
Yeah. And the one quick thing I want to say, I'm not sure what your name is. I just finished talking before. No, the guy. Yeah, what I would like you to do, man, I get what you're saying about most media outlets and activists and that they search after people, but I want to let you know I'm an activist. And
I'm not trying to paint a broad brush. I'm not trying to paint a broad brush.
Yeah, that's why. Let me finish what I was saying, though. Let me finish. Because you painted a pretty wide brush there, painted with a pretty wide brush there, and I just wanted to say that sometimes when activists show up and sometimes when media show up, they actually do mean well.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, not in Louisiana. No, hell no. You know, you gotta call a spade a spade. When they came out from the church,
I don't want to have to defend my position. I don't want to have to defend my position or anything. I know I painted with a broad brush. I'm speaking in generalities, and I'm just speaking. And if I had to say how it looks, you know, your argument essentially was there are some good cops. Right?
No, that's not. I'm
just saying. I'm just equating that. I'm just saying that there are some good media, right? There are some good media. What I'm saying is that families need to make sure and understand when they're dealing with somebody who comes knocking on their door in particular, whether it be news or whether it be media, or activists or even a lawyer, right? Just hit the pause button and make sure that you check before you make any statements to the media, before you sign any papers with the lawyer, and before you let some of these ministers, quote unquote ministers, in your house to be praying for you.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. That it mostly is that when people show up, and what we don't want to do is just push the people out who actually mean well, man. Like because here in Baltimore, I'm doing as much as anyone in Baltimore to make things better for people, and as anyone, and as by what I can see on the ground, and I'm a media person and I'm an activist all day long, and so we want to sometimes, that's why I say sometimes people do show up, and that thing that you just said about you making the argument for cops, I don't fucking I have no respect for cops whatsoever, so to use that as a metaphor, man, though, it's a real bad metaphor to use when you're doing that, because I'm certainly, and people in this room, they know me. They know who I am.
They know me too. I have no fucking love for the cops, okay? Since we're on air right now, I have no fucking love for the cops either, okay? Yeah. I'm just saying that argument is the functional equivalent of there are some good cops, and I'm trying to paint the policy.
No, it's not.
No, I'm just saying I'm just trying to paint the policy so that people operate.
I'll let you keep that, but that's
right.
not true, man. That's what you want to say, but it's not true. It's
bro.
actually kind of offensive, actually, man.
We'll agree to disagree. I'm just trying to say, on general, if we're setting a general policy, I'm telling, just like I would tell them, don't count on the good cop showing up. Prepare yourself for the bad cop and move accordingly. So I'm just saying, if I have to set a policy in place, make sure to hit pause before you sign any papers with a lawyer, before you allow anybody in your house to pray for you, and before you go on anybody's media. Pause, find out who you're really dealing with. And I'm not speaking about you because you're one of the good journalists and one of the good activists. I'm saying that there are many, many, many people who are ill-intentioned that show up at these folks' homes and walk them down a path. And there are lawyers who will ruin their cases. There are media people who will get them to say all kinds of stuff that will ruin their opportunity to get any kind of justice. And there are ministers who will then turn around and sue them. That says nothing about the good media, the good ministers, and the good folks who are trying to do this work. That says everything about the bad ones. And so I'm just saying your argument sort of has a certain familiarity.
Yeah, and you're back to that again. And can we? What I want to do is let that.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Tawanda.
No, I just wanted to say real quick that, like, I agree with JC that there's good people and stuff like that too, but I definitely agree with Jonathan. When these atrocities happen, they actually do send people to send you down the wrong road, and I know that for a painful fact because it happened to my family. People that came to my family home, oh, we want to pray for you, we want to do this, we want to do that, was trying to send my family, the West family, down a dead-end road. Like, literally praying when we start asking violent questions like, why did Tyrone get murdered? Why wasn't we called up? Violent questions, they would say, oh, well, let's pray. So I definitely agree from the aspect of which Jonathan is warning the families. Like, he's just saying, be careful, be cautious, because they will try to get you to sign things. Like, I had somebody, and I'm not going to say their name, but they actually got to the point, they're like, we can get all this stuff for you, for your brother, the cameras, the video footage, everything you need. All we want you to do, Miss Jones, is sign your name on the dotted line type of thing. And I'm like, I can't, because if I sign my name on this dotted line, I got a contract in between me and my attorney, you know, and you're like third party, and I breached that contract. Me and my family won't even have a case. You know, and I'm like, if you want to work with my family, work with my attorneys. They got mad at me, and they were like, everything that they did, they could have did for my family, because I didn't sign my name on the damn dotted line, they walked away. And that made me feel like they were trying to put me in the trick bag. They were trying to put me in the trick bag, me and my family, and I'm glad I didn't sign it, because still to this day I have nothing. So I definitely appreciate you giving that feedback, and I definitely feel with JC too, because it do be some good people. Because I had people like Baltimore Block show up and they had no motive, real activists on the street. They met JC, Shorty, all of them, that mean my family well and help my family out in many ways when I talk about them. But we do talk about what Jonathan is saying. When it first happened, those people that come up like lawyers, media, watch them. I'm trying to tell you, he wants you really good. He's not even talking about the good one. This ain't even about the good one. It's about those drugs that do show up first that try to opt and send people down the right way. I can definitely agree with that. And the same thing he said, Anthony Anderson family, that happened to them. You know what I mean? So different families that I know on a personal level, just talking to the family, we like, oh, they showed up to you? Yeah, they show up. It's definitely real, JC. Definitely. So I just wanted to share that real quick. And sorry about cutting you off. I wanted to share that. Mike, chat?
Can I say something?
Sure.
I said that I don't deal with the police, and the police don't deal with me, because at the end of the day, when the white police officers were standing there telling me when my nephew's dead body was laying over there, and I was like, God gonna punish y'all for what you did, but hold on, I got a little something extra for you. The black police officers stood there and looked at me and shook their head. So had they stood up like they're standing up now, a lot of people wouldn't be dead. But they didn't do anything. So they're guilty as the fuckers that pulled the trigger to me. So I don't have no respect for the police department. And as far as the activists here, oh my God, Black Lives Matter, I shoot them down every time they come up. Because they're not like Black Lives Matter in Baltimore. They're not like Black Lives Matter in Washington, D.C. They fake. They're fake here. So that's why I say what I say. You know, all the activists here, they're full of shit. The NAACP, I shut them all down because at the end of the day, they're just trying to be seen. They ain't never been on camera before, not before Alton. They've never been on TV, not one of them. And if you would have saw them, it was sad, it was pitiful. But I shut their ass down. So my question is, where do I start? I need to get these cases open back up. So can I go to another state and ask for the cases in Louisiana to be opened up, or do I need to start in Louisiana?
So understanding the prosecutor's discretion is, first off, let me frame this out this way. One, your local prosecutor has complete discretion on what cases he is going to charge and what cases he's going to pursue. 9 times out of 10, after these folks get elected, they forget about everybody who helped them get elected. Your case becomes a back burner, and then you stop your calls stop getting answered. Then the next thing you know, you're told, "Oh, I can't prosecute this case." One thing to look at is when these situations take place, almost every one of them involves the violation of civil rights under process of law. This is a federal crime. And I'll take the Walter Scott shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. The state prosecutor took the charges. There was a failure to be able to bring a conviction in that case, but Mike Slager ended up going to jail on violation that's 18 USC 242 and 241. If there was any conspiracy to hide what was going on, there's a conspiracy to deprive someone of their civil rights. You can look that law up. It's 18 USC 242. If there was a deprivation of civil rights under color of law, that's 241, 18 USC 241. Now, where you take that complaint to is you're going to have to contact the FBI and say, I would like to have this case looked into. Now, you may or may not get any positive feedback from them. But if you take to them some evidence and you say, let's see if I can help, if I can bring this forward and say this police station has done this particular act, would you please investigate it? You may get some knowledge out of that. I'll give you a case down in Georgia right now in Clayton County. The sheriff that I blew the whistle on in 2008, okay? He has been, in my opinion, a corrupt sheriff ever since he's been in office. When I blew the whistle, and that's how I ended up going through the criminal justice process myself. That's how I ended up going to law school and becoming a lawyer. This gentleman just had his office raided by the FBI, but that raid started with a citizen complaint about what happened inside that jail. And so if he's charged with a crime, I imagine that it's going to be violation of civil rights, the deprivation of civil rights under color of law. And if there are other people involved with it, in terms of 2 or more people, then there will be a conspiracy to violate somebody's civil rights under color of law. Your U.S. Attorney's Office in your region is the ones who will prosecute that. And let me tell you something about them. They really don't give a damn too much about the political optics of things. If there's a case there and there's some meat on the bone, most of the time they will move on it, okay? With your local politicians, oftentimes they feel like, you know, there might be political repercussions if they take up a fight against the police. I'll give you an example. In Baltimore, when Marilyn Mosby took up the fight against the killers of Freddie Gray, she faced stiff opposition after it was over. But I want to credit that sister. She went after those people. She went after those people and she charged those people. So when you begin to look at your local politicians to find out whether he will take up your case or not, start looking at a way to replace them. They are political operatives. They are political people. I hope that suffices.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
And before we bring out Brother Kano real quick, I just gotta say something real fast about Marilyn Mosby. Like, I'm glad she took on that challenge, but to me it was a bunch of BS. It was basically, in my opinion, to stop the uprising from happening because she didn't do anything. And to this day, like, I brought her new information. She disrespected my family. She never even met back up with the new information, whereas though I got my brother's body exhumed from the ground. I got the new witness statements that basically says that my brother, like, out of the killer's mouth, because they try to make it seem like the thing that started my brother to get combative with the fact that he had drugs on him and things like that and all this stuff. Drugs were never tested, none submitted out the own killer's mouth when they were asked, sworn under, right, testifying. They were asked, well, where did you get the drugs at from Mr. West? They go, oh, I saw it on the news. Chapman goes, oh, I never saw any drugs. Like, really? So y'all lie? So I gave her all this new information and she did nothing, but yet she go after innocent man, Keith Davis Jr. So, yeah, she's one of the phony balonies, too. I had to clear the air with that one. Definitely. I love you, Jonathan, but she's a phony baloney. So, moving to my brother Ken. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
I want to say I'm terribly sorry for the pain that every loved one is facing, because that has to be some pain that, you know, you're suffering every single day trying to find justice in a system that hasn't served you well. And it's important for us to say it how it needs to be said, that folks are just tired. They're tired of empty promises, endless excuses, and when we say that we're tired and we look at it from our different perspectives, and I'm going to say it as it needs to be said, there's a white perspective, there's a black perspective. I'm going to talk from the black perspective because I'm a black man. The black perspective is this system is working as it is and has always been intended to treat black folks unfairly, and at the same time provide a system that empowers and controls black people to their detriment, to the benefit of white people. And you can be a white ally, but unless you're willing to get on that level with me, I mean, we can't solve this problem, because there are some people who are right. You know, if I go out and I build a house that is on a cracked foundation, I build a house and it goes straight up into the sky and it starts to lean on that cracked foundation, and there's no way that I can repair that foundation, at the end of the day, I'm going to have to tear that sucker down and pour a whole new foundation unless I want to go and see this thing fall. And that's kind of like where we're at right now with law enforcement. We keep on trying to go and plug holes in the dike, and the dike keeps on spilling water out. And, you know, the water is drowning black people, and white folks are on the shore looking at us drown in the middle of this damn water. And that's the truth of the matter. When we look at Mr. Brooks' situation, a man that pulled off into a parking lot area, sure, he may have drank a little earlier. Sure, he shouldn't have been driving. But he didn't kill anybody, right? He's in the middle of a damn parking lot, and within an hour of police arriving on the scene after a Wendy's employee called 911 to say, hey, can someone come out here and just take a look at a man who's passed out behind the wheel, Mr. Brooks perished. He died. I have never seen in my career in law enforcement a law enforcement officer drive up to a call, a 911 call about a person possibly drunk or high or just not in their right frame of mind, and the officer shows up behind that vehicle and then tells the driver, hey, how you doing? Knocks on the window, hey, how you doing? Wake up, please. Why don't you drive your car, please, over there? I've never seen that. So the whole thing starts off very poorly in Georgia, and it ends the way it started. Funky. Mr. Brooks should have been given a ride home. If he was okay to park his damn car in that private parking lot, then the next thing that people usually have a tendency to believe is that, okay, this is cool, the police understand I tried to get off the road, they're gonna maybe give me a drive home. Or, as Mr. Brooks said, maybe I'm gonna be able to walk home because tomorrow is my daughter's birthday, officer. I appreciate you looking out for me. How that could evolve into a man running with something that wasn't deadly and the police officers shooting him because they didn't feel like they wanted to take chase after a black man is outrageous. Now, white people, if the police had been chasing after a stray dog and decided to go and shoot it in the middle of the road, y'all motherfuckers would be all up in arms about that, right? And I'm going to say it the way it has to be said.
That's right.
We have to go and have these honest discussions, okay? And we have to go and say it and express it the way it needs to be said, with feeling and conviction, but at the same time, so that it's reasonable. I'm going to straddle the line and offer the fact that black officers that are out there and white officers that are out there, that you see this stuff happening every single day. Mr. Brooks's murder was captured on video. There are witnesses out there waiting to go and get some food from Wendy's. They all witnessed the man get murdered. And then had to go and watch the police jump on top of a man that they shot twice to torture him as he took his last breath on the ground. This is the society that we're dealing with when people like Tawanda and other folks say killer cops need jail cell blocks. I'm in firm agreement with that, because murder is murder. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter your status, doesn't matter if you're a police officer, and all this blue stuff and, blue lives. Cut the crap. Cut the crap. If you're out here in a job and you want to go blow shit up or go kill people, don't be a cop. Go into the military and they'll send you off to war someplace outside this country. And you can go try to go and do that there. And if you violate someone's, rights or something like that under the military code, they'll prosecute you in the military. But don't do that shit here in America. Don't go out on a shift and think it's your job to go out, stop, question, frisk, harass, and arrest black folks. And when white folks who are doing all the similar stuff, you want to give them a ride home. I bet you if Mr. Brooks was a police officer, he would have got a ride home. I bet you if Mr. Brooks was a judge, he would have got a ride home. I bet you if Mr. Brooks was the prosecutor, he would have got a ride home. If he was your white pastor, he would have got a ride home.
Right.
Mr. Brooks, the black man, didn't get a ride home because we had to face the fact that these white cops showed up, and at the end of the day, they felt that they could do whatever they wanted to, even kill him, shoot him, gun him down, lynch him in the middle of a damn parking lot, and get away with it. Fortunately, today, the prosecutors down in Atlanta said, no, enough's enough. Fortunately, the prosecutors laid out a number of different charges to go and charge. It seemed like they had charges against 2 officers, and 1 officer wants to flip against the other officer. They're both corrupt, bad cops. Okay, one wants to flip on the other, but we got to call it what it is. How many complaints did these officers have leading up to this murder? How many times did the black and white officers in the APD see, witness, hear something, have many, many citizen complaints come in about these guys, but did nothing? I mean, as a former law enforcement officer, I'm a whistleblower cop. I've had to go and testify against police officers. I had to arrest people for rape and things like that. I lost my job based on not remaining silent, so I am a good cop, former good cop. I know what that looks like, but before I was a good cop, I'm always going to be a black man. So we can have these discussions back and forth about what's good or bad. At the end of the day, if you commit a crime, I don't give a shit if you're in that uniform or not. If you commit a crime, you need to go do the time. And that's the discussion that we need to be having. There shouldn't be 2 standards in this United States. If you're a police officer in uniform and you go out and commit a murder, it shouldn't take several days for them to go out and arrest you. Because if a normal citizen goes out, I was a detective, a homicide detective. If I had probable cause to lock your ass up, you got locked up for murder. How is it that it's going to take all of this time to put all the dots, cross the T's, dot the I's, and then all of a sudden we go out hours later, maybe days later, sometimes never, to go out and have justice? And see, the way the black community looks at it is this: there is a killer at large. Mr. Floyd's death, captured on video, had all of those citizens who witnessed his death say, "Oh my God, these killer cops are at large." They went out, they started protesting, they started raising hell because the killers were at large. They were at large with guns, and nobody was doing anything about it. Last time we talked about the 1968 Kerner Commission report. We talked about the fact that every riot, every civil unrest, every civil disorder in this country that involved black folks and police always started with shit that police officers did against black people. It's got to stop. And unfortunately, members of law enforcement who I've had conversations with who think that a person like Mr. Brooks, who was running away with a damn taser, could be shot in the back a couple times and that's fine, you need to go find a new job. You need to go find a new job bagging groceries maybe, because that's maybe the level that you're capable of, doing a good job, because you're not reasonable. So when Jonathan was earlier talking about these standards that are in law enforcement, for instance, Tennessee versus Gardner, a 1985 case. That case involved a 15-year-old child shot in the head, the back of the head, climbing over a fence, running away from police officers in 1985. That's what that case involved. A 15-year-old child, black kid, who had been in someone's house, stole a ring and $10, was running away from the police, didn't have any weapons, and the police unloaded on him and shot him in the back of the head and killed him. That was Tennessee versus Gardner in 1985. Then in 1989, the case Graham versus Connor. Yeah, it established this low-level, objectively reasonable standard that police officers, the lowest level that you could possibly find on the planet to talk about deadly force by police officers. Basically, the court said, let's figure out a way to allow police officers to go out there and lynch folks and get away with it. That's basically what the case talks about, right? Because unfortunately, if in America, if I'm a former law enforcement officer, and I can have conversations with other law enforcement officers, the Graham versus Connor case talks about it has to come from the reasonable officers who discuss being in the position of, let's say, the officer that was chasing after Mr. Brooks, and making a decision based on our reasonableness of being in that profession, what is reasonable and what is not reasonable. Now, if you motherfuckers in law enforcement think that Mr. Brooks deserved to get shot in the back twice, you are unreasonable. You are unreasonable, and you're proving every single day why people cannot trust law enforcement. We can go all the way back in history and talk about back in 1619 forward. But you people today who are out there spewing this hatred while under the authority of law, you are unfit and you don't need to be in that uniform. You should just quit. Or if you're out there doing stupid stuff, you should be prosecuted. So let's talk about that part for a minute, because Jonathan covered it a little bit, but I'm going to cover it a different way, my way. You know, there are three different ways that police officers are held accountable, theoretically. Administratively is one way. They could go out, they violate a policy, or they violate their training, or they violate some memorandum that the chief puts out, and the municipality or the chief can hold them accountable. We saw that a few weeks ago where some college students in Atlanta were out in a car. The police officers rushed in on them, committed all types of excessive force, threats, all types of craziness. And those police officers, some of them, were disciplined to the point where some were terminated, right? So administratively, those officers were dealt with. Same thing in Mr. Brooks' situation. Administratively, the mayor stepped in and said, Chief, I don't know what the hell you're doing over there in this damn police department, but there's got to be a change, and it's going to start from the top down. The chief decided, hey, let me resign. The mayor said, you do that, that officer is fired. That's one level of having some sort of accountability, administrative. The next level is criminal. Today we had the prosecutor step out and say, hey, you know what? After reviewing the evidence in this Brooks case, I find that the officers are responsible for committing crimes while under or acting under the color of law inside that uniform. And the prosecutor said, enough's enough. Go out, get warrants, and let's arrest these people. Now, one thing I don't like and didn't like that I heard today from the prosecutor, okay, you want to go tell the person that they got a warrant for their arrest. I don't see how we go and say, well, you know what, come in tomorrow by 6 p.m. and turn yourself in. You're at large, as far as I'm concerned. Police should be actively trying to pursue you to lock your ass up. You shouldn't get another night's rest. If you want to run, let law enforcement chase you down to the ends of the earth like dogs, like they do to everybody else that's out there that's wanted. Why are we sitting up here with killer, people who committed a crime, committed a heinous crime against Mr. Brooks? Why do they get a chance to go and sleep in their beds another night? Right? So that's the criminal side of things. And then there's the civil side. The civil side is you, as a loved one, go after, a person or the entity that hired that individual, retain that individual, train that individual, supervise that individual or lack of supervision, and you go after them because they should have known that they hired a damn scumbag. And you want to go and have a jury understand that that shouldn't have been the case because it ended up with you losing someone that you loved, and that person is still out there, taking a breath. Those are the three tracks. And they don't have to run at the same time. They can run separately. We've already seen that in Atlanta. You get fired, you get charged a few days later, and now all of a sudden, civilly, the families will say, I have lawyers, I'm going to go after you civilly. We'll deal with that. So historically here in the United States, when we talk about this long-standing abuse, police brutality, we're going to have to go and talk about some numbers. We're going to have this all make sense. There are 42 million black folks in America. There are 197 million white folks. A lot of Hispanic folks consider themselves not to be black or white. Sometimes they consider themselves to be white. Sometimes they consider themselves, a few of them consider themselves to be black. There are 39 million Hispanic folks in the country. At the end of the day, when we talk about the rate of fatal police shootings in the United States from 2015 to 2020 by ethnicity, out of per million of each of those ethnic groups per million, 12 white folks get shot per 1 million. 30 black folks get shot per million. So, wait a minute. Ken, what are you talking about here? I am saying to you, how is it that black folks, who are, white folks are 5 times the size of black folks, and they represent 12 shootings per million. How is it that the group that's the smallest, 5 times smaller than white folks, represent 30 people per million that are shot? Now, one thing about the media that we have to go and point out, and it's kind of important, we wouldn't have any of these stats if it wasn't for the media. A few years ago, there were a number of different projects that were underway where the media said, okay, enough's enough. We got to figure out what the hell's going on here. Let's go out and get some data. Because the police officers in the police departments in the municipalities that they work for certainly aren't giving us any data. So let's put it together. Let's screen people who are being shot and killed by police across this country, and let's put up some tables. Then all of a sudden the FBI at the end of the first year or the second year steps in and says, whoa, wait a minute. We're looking pretty bad because the media is putting out all this data and it's informing all the people about the bullshit that's going on. Oh, wow, we better say that we're going to create our own database. That's the truth. That's the truth. We're all adults in this room, so hopefully you don't mind my vernacular. I'm a little upset, and I'm gonna stress it the way it needs to be stressed. Here in America, there cannot be 2 standards. There cannot be a white standard and a black standard. If we want to have anarchy, a civil war, and all types of shit break out in this country, if we continue down this path, that's where we're going to be going. That is where we're going. Because that is what is happening out in those streets right now. These kids that are out in those streets, I'm 54 years old. These kids that are out in those streets, they have said enough is enough. They are not looking to go and have anyone pacify them with empty promises like the past 400 years. It doesn't take 400 years to stop shit. It doesn't take 400 years to end discrimination. It doesn't take 400 years to end selective enforcement. It doesn't take 400 years to end harassment based on color, disparate treatment, disparate impact, selective enforcement, all these little words that we can come up with to talk about you hunting black people differently than you hunt white folks. We got to have an honest discussion, and we got to bring this thing to the table before we end up killing each other.
Yeah. Amen.
That's all I have.
That was good, Ken. That was great. Like, oh my God. Like y'all said.
And I did it in a shirt and tie, just to go and make sure everyone understood it. You know.
Yeah. This was definitely a great dialogue. Definitely a great dialogue. I just thank y'all for bringing the fire today. I thank each and every last one of y'all. Thank y'all so much. Definitely need Mike and Jeff.
Best 2 hours of my week. Mike check. Mike check.
Tawanda, can I ask one question?
Sure, go for it. Hey, Dan and Hillary.
So the point about, and I appreciate this was great dialogue tonight. I want to echo that about the civil rights case. Would it be more effective if, and I know this is true in Tyrone's case, that there are certain officers that were involved in the murder of Tyrone that also perpetrated brutality in other cases right around the same time and probably are still doing some of the same things on our force. Some of them may even be in that Prince George's County force that you were talking about, as far as we know. Would it be a more effective strategy if folks could get together and make the case against those particular officers and the units that they're involved in those federal cases?
I think so. I think so. I think if I were looking at that like a like if you flip the roles and just put yourself operate almost like how the police operate, you've got these people who are at one department and did something, and they just decided to pick up their criminal activity and move it to another department and start doing the exact same thing. I've built a script here at my office that I use, Maryland Case Search. I hope they never fix it. I can put in an officer's last name and pull up all of his cases that he has arrested under. And then I can play connect the dots with his charging patterns, and I almost see the exact same thing. So then on this one particular officer that I said, we've got a problem here, I want to verify that. So I went down and pulled his statement of probable causes. And lo and behold, almost every last one of them has the exact same pattern. He pulled the person over just to give them a warning. They became irate and started accusing him of racially profiling them. And when he was just going to give them a warning, they hopped out the car and attacked them, and he had to deploy his pepper spray and arrest them. And when I saw this pattern, I mean, like, so we need to literally get organized and be intentional with our behavior. In 2015, when I was a law student, I created this thing called PERP, and it stood for the Police Incident Reporting Platform. And we just never got broad support. But one thing I will say is I really didn't know how to work the internet to be able to create the social media hailstorms like some of the other folks are doing. And so this idea was simple. When you have a bad encounter with the police, I believe the last people that you should ever call should be the police. You should call a non-governmental organization that controls that data, that is able to build a profile, name that officer, and then we take a stack of those damn complaints to a prosecutor. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that prosecutor of that jurisdiction. We need to be going to state agencies, to the DOJ with those complaints. Officer Daniel Holtzcloth out in Arizona, he had raped 11 women before he was caught. There's no way, if citizens had a place to complain other than the police agencies, I believe that we would get some momentum on getting some of these officers off the streets. But when you report a bad officer to the Baltimore Police Department, I don't expect the Baltimore Police Department to do anything. It's like if my neighbor raped my loved one, God forbid, I'm not going next door to report that to the neighbor. I've got to find somebody else that's going to take up my cause. And so I'm hoping that, these are some of the things that I've been talking about since 2015. And I would welcome working with anybody that would like to help me really get it moving. I'm a practicing lawyer now, and one of the things I say is that lawsuits are not the best mechanism to fix this problem.
I have another question for Jonathan. In the case of Tyrone West, one of the things that we've done over the years is to have a big petition campaign and letter writing campaign at the time to Loretta Lynch, who was Attorney General under Obama. And she had met with the family and made it seem as if she was going to do something. But when we sent in those hundreds and hundreds of letters and petitions to her office, it took a while. We finally heard back from a very low-level person in the Justice Department, and that was all we heard. So after that, does it still make sense, as you suggested, to try to go through the FBI to prosecute, or are they going to follow through with saying the Justice Department has already had its say in this case?
So the Justice Department is the prosecuting agent, and the FBI is the investigatory agency. And so what I'm saying is that if you've had no luck out of the state prosecutors, then the next level up would be, and the next level up would be the FBI looking for a federal investigation. But as Ken said, this system has two standards for two different communities. And had Tyrone West been a white boy, his situation would have been investigated down to the damn pencil push when them officers wrote their reports. We just have a different standard when it comes to experiencing, when black folks experience pain and suffering than when white folks experience pain and suffering at a large scale. So, does it make sense? I would try everything possible before I would give up, So if the state prosecutor won't take it, I'm going up to the feds. If the feds won't take it, then I'm going to be doing like Tawana's been doing. I'm going to make as much noise as possible until somebody does it. And I applaud her for that effort. We have to change personnel, and obviously some people have actually changed personnel and still gotten the same lukewarm, non-effective response. And so we're at that point now where, as Ken said and as Tawana said earlier, this next generation is just not going to have it. we will either have an America where people are treated equally by this system of criminal justice, or we will not probably have an America. And that's not because I'm inciting that. That's because that next generation chooses not to live like that anymore.
So we have a comment.
Good point.
We have a comment coming from, or a question coming from online. A question, and it's funny. Ken, she calls you the free officer, but she asks a question for the free officer and the lawyer. How much do you think the media has been used to create the standard for how police and civilians can and ought to be treated?
You want me to take that, Jonathan?
Yeah, man. You listen. You're like my like Obama used to have an anger. I can't do it anymore. I'm licensed, but I love it here, man. I'm go, man.
It's important for us to look at the way that we look at the media today is different than what it was back in the 60s. 70% of people get their news from social media. And some of that's through postings. People who are live screening something and then all of a sudden it takes off, and that's how they find out what's going on. The mainstream media, after that thing goes viral, then all of a sudden hops on it and starts to report what they may have seen that was, out in the community. So there's a little bit of a switch as far as how I see the media. Now, the media gets used, it gets played by law enforcement. What do I mean by that? Well, as Jonathan said earlier, if it's the police that are giving the media the bogus report at the outset of something that is now being investigated as a wrongful death or a unjustified or justified shooting by the police, right? The media is going with the narrative of law enforcement or that municipality. The municipality has incentive, and they're motivated to put out something that doesn't paint them in the worst possible light, because at the end of the day, they're going to protect the city coffers or the municipal coffers from a potential lawsuit. The officers who are under their umbrella work for the system that's trying to protect the coffers. The officers also work alongside the officers who are being investigated, right? That's a problem. That's called a conflict of interest, right? But the media is also a useful tool, because if they, a day later or so, come back out and start questioning why law enforcement steered them in the wrong direction, and now they highlight the deficiencies in what was reported earlier versus maybe what video comes out or what reports were written by officers early on, and then there's video that comes out that is conflicting or is in conflict with what the police put out in space. That actually is very helpful to the general population, because it points to the systemic nature, unfortunately, in law enforcement, where we have this broken system where we can talk about good cops and bad cops and a few rotten apples. I don't know about anybody else, but I hate to go and bite into a rotten apple. And if the cops that are on police agencies are rotten, then you best believe that there are people who work alongside them that know that they're rotten and they're not doing anything about it. So that means that that good cop who thinks he's good is rotten too. The media needs to highlight that part. The municipality historically has not highlighted it. The media needs to highlight it. And when I say media, I'm not talking about the mainstream media. I'm talking about us. So all of you warriors out there with your cameras and stuff, like Mr. Floyd's death, if it wasn't for the warriors on that street corner approaching armed people who were killing a man on a street corner, we wouldn't know about this. They're heroes. That's the media that we have to support, the independent people.
So they answered another question. How are prosecutors held accountable?
So right now, they're not. They're only held accountable during the election season. We're talking, there's a big movement right now to push, to actually change qualified immunity. Most citizens are amazed to find out that prosecutors and judges have something called absolute immunity for anything that they do with regarding their charging and bringing forth in their sentencing. And so I want you to think about that. in environments where somebody has basically been given a cover for all of their errors, right? That becomes a breeding ground for malicious conduct and abuse. And so we have these doctrines that were carried over from monarchy days that have been propagated throughout our modern day criminal justice system. Absolute immunity. And what you've seen with qualified immunity is on paper, it looks like it's actually a good thing based on an officer's good faith that he had probable cause to make an arrest and he just made a mistake. We qualified and we give him immunity. What they've done with that is just broadened it out so much that it has essentially become almost absolute immunity. Prosecutors are not held accountable unless you remove them from office. And things that prosecutors do that doesn't really make much public, doesn't get much public scrutiny. They offer plea deals to black folks that they don't offer to white folks. Okay, prosecutors allow cases to linger on that absolutely have no business lingering on. What I mean by lingering on, an officer takes a charge, and everybody knows that officer has a history of lying, a history of doing things that's full of misconduct. Instead of going ahead and closing that case out and actually moving on, prosecutor will let that drag out. Sometimes the prosecutor will even let guilty to a lesser charge, knowing full well that this statement of probable cause or whatever is just full of nothing but lies. And so, at every level in the criminal justice system, we need to be looking at what is being done to perpetuate these injustices and this inequality out of the system. And when you take it up to the judges, we have desperate sentencing going on. And really, when you go in some of these courtrooms throughout America and you see how judges talk to people of color and talk to poor people, it's absolutely abhorrent. When we see it captured on video, we think that's like an aberration, but it's not. It happens every day. What happens is a lot of these folks get this power and it absolutely corrupts them. And there's no checks and balances on it. The criminal justice system is a closed loop circuit with few people inspecting what it does. And when that happens, it becomes a place that is ripe for abuse.
Let me take that a step further. A few years ago, when everybody was in Ferguson, and we think about that's a small town, 20,000 or so folks. Mm-hmm. The criminal justice system was so ripe with corruption that nearly every black person in that town had a warrant. They were basically used as an ATM for the criminal justice system. A cop could just reach out and arrest somebody, get their stat, have it go to court, maybe get a little overtime for having to go to court. And the person who was arrested suffered. They could be held in a county jail or some jail someplace. So that meant that someone had a job that was secure because every day somebody was going to come into this plantation and have to serve some time. And that's how everyone else got paid. Majority of the system that was being reaping a benefit from this were white folks who had the jobs to control the black folks. What does that remind you of? Doesn't that remind you of like before 1865? Mm-hmm. White people, we have to have an honest discussion about that history. We have to have an honest discussion about that hatred. We have to have an honest discussion about the intent, the knowingly, intentionally harming people of color, and you have to stop. You need to be at the table with your friends, your family members, and you need to check that. The black folks that are on this line have very little access to your folks. You need to check that. It's not up to us to go and check that. It's up to you to check that. I'm tired of the black man trying to go and teach white folks about how they hate and how racist they are or discriminatory they are. I really am tired. That's not my job. I don't put on a backpack every day saying I'm going to have to go out and teach white folks today. That's your job. You can Google anything you want. Google racism. Google being discriminatory. And stop.
Amen. Church for free, y'all. Y'all got a church service for free today. Amen.
Ken, I was surprised that they didn't prosecute anybody in Ferguson. I thought that when that report came out, what they found down there was you found city management. We need to amp up our ticket writing because the coffers over here at the city are running short. That to me sounded like a conspiracy. Had that city been run by black people, they would have been indicted on that.
Here goes the problem. We said it from the very beginning. The system is running smooth as silk.
Smooth as
The
silk.
well-greased oil system is running as it's intended.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, before 1862, we had judges that owned slaves.
Yeah.
We had presidents that owned slaves. So when we talk about indemnification, we're talking about a country that indemnified white folks for heinous crimes for 400 years against one group of people. So these words that we're throwing out there about indemnification and workarounds to make sure that people aren't held accountable, these aren't anything new. It's a wash, rinse, repeat of the same cycle all over again.
Michelle Alexander
We
said.
have to be honest about that.
Yeah. Michelle Alexander said that in her book really good. We have went from antebellum slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration, and we really need to be worried about what is the next iteration of this of that pattern, because I think the next iteration is this in-home monitoring. Everybody's in-home monitored now. It's almost like catch and release, but we still got you, where you got to report in, you got to check in, you got to this and that and the other, and that's it. Now, so you actually pay for that in certain jurisdictions. You got to pay to for your probation. So you're right. It's just been a continuation, and it's been a constant thing to wake up to in America.
America has to be very, very careful. And let me phrase it this way so that it's understood in terms of the timeline. It began off of conflict with indigenous people that were already here, right? And then when we move forward to the American Revolution, a conflict over the taxation and control of black people for profit, a heinous act, a genocide of people. That's in 1783 when that ended. Then in 1862, nearly 100 years later, or 1861, nearly 100 years later, we have a civil war over the control of black people for profit, where the southern states seceded from the Union, which led to 600,000 people dying in the Civil War, 200,000 black men joining that Civil War to help the Union defeat the folks that committed treason. We're now about 155 years past that mark. If we're not very careful, history has a chance to repeat itself, and it has in America year over year, where civil unrest, civil disturbances become civil wars. And that's the reason why I'm saying, based on what I am seeing, I'm only 54, so I'm only taking it based on observations. The people who are out in the streets today are not the same folks that were out in those streets back during the Civil Rights era. These folks today are looking at this completely different. White folks have always looked at it, have always thought that, well, I got to have a gun to control a black person, so they have their guns. But black folks are proliferating their guns. And at some point in time, these two groups are going to come together, and this conflict can escalate. So either this country, from the top down, starts to recognize this problem, or the other thing that we have to face is maybe that is by design by some people. They would prefer to have that conflict. I hope we don't have to have that conflict. I would hope that we could have a peaceful resolution. I would hope that we could sit up here and say, okay, you know what, white folks, stop being discriminatory. The 1964 Civil Rights Act passed all types of laws to end discrimination, to afford people equality. Let's have fair housing. Let's have, end discrimination in jobs. Let's end, this poverty that is afflicting a lot of folks. Let's end it. But instead, since 1972, based on the war on drugs, we decided as a country to spend over $3 trillion in the war on drugs to arrest 1 in 5 black folks, black men, for a low-level possessionary offense called marijuana, instead of putting that towards education, putting that towards jobs, putting that towards making sure that we uplifted folks out of poverty. So we have to have a gut check, is what I'm saying. White folks have to have a gut check and understand this stuff. It's going to lead to problems out here. There's only but so much that folks can tolerate. And now that we have social media, which shows at lightning speed, someone being killed, black folks aren't desensitized to it. White folks who care aren't desensitized to it. White folks are like, oh my God, I didn't know this was going on. Black folks are like, welcome to the damn party. It's been going on. The one video that you see doesn't represent the other 20 or 30 people that got the same treatment. But welcome to the party. So now that you're at the party and you're in shock and awe over what law enforcement has been doing and continues to do in this country, it's imperative that white folks have this discussion with their white peers and family members and associates and co-workers. Stop the shit.
I'd just like to add one more piece here. I think part of the tone tonight has been that racism and violence against people of color is a continuation of a long history. I think actually that in the modern period it's gotten worse. It's not simply a continuation. For example, if we look at the Jim Crow period, on the average there were 59 people lynched per year. And we think back to the case of Emmett Till and others, and those of us who know a little of that history are aghast and angry. But actually, it's worse today. So during that Jim Crow period, the average size of the African American population was about 10 million. Today, it's a little over 40 million, so about 4 times greater. If we multiply that 59 lynchings per year times 4, we get 200-something deaths, killings of black people per year. But the police are killing 1,100 per year and have done that through the Obama years, have done it through the Trump years consistently, about 1,100 a year. 4 times worse, 4 times more frequently than was going on during the Jim Crow period. And so I think racism is not simply a legacy of the past. I think it's something that's useful to the ruling class today. And therefore, they perpetuate it and enhance it. And as Lerone Bennett said, who used to be the black history writer for Ebony magazine, he said in every new generation, they have to, he didn't use the word brainwash, I forget the word he used, but they have to brainwash white people into believing that stuff. Because we don't naturally believe that. It's instilled in people. And in my opinion, and the reason I think that they continue with racism so seriously and work so hard at maintaining it is because a huge chunk of capitalist profits are derived from racism. People of color are paid significantly less. About half of corporate profits is based on that super exploitation of black workers and Latino workers, and the effect racism has on dividing people, as Ken has just been describing, that weakens us, and so therefore, in the parts of the country where racism has historically been most intense, like the South, there are very few unions because it's hard to organize multiracial unity with that intense history of racism, and wages are the lowest there. So this system is like a bloodsucker. It lives off racism, and that's why I think we still face it. And that's why, as a member of the Progressive Labor Party, I think we need a revolution. We have to get rid of a system that profits from these problems, these severe problems that we face, and we need a new way of life where racism is no longer profitable. And at that point in history, we'll finally be able, over generations, to defeat it. Today we can fight it and win some things, but we can't defeat it until we get rid of a system that needs it. So I just wanted to add that little bit to the conversation today.
Someone online just made a comment that the atrocities that happened in the past are only the ones that we know about and that were recorded. So it is tough to gauge whether it is worse or better today. Mic check.
Let me just say this. Hold on 1 second. Nobody would question whether or not the Jewish Holocaust that killed 4 million people was a bad time. We can look back on history and we understood and understand what happened. This idea of questioning the Holocaust associated with black people in this country. Y'all white people got to stop doing that. There have been millions upon millions of people in the passage, just alone in the passage from Africa to this world, that perished. Millions. There were millions upon millions of people who perished when they got here based on systematic control, whether that be by gunpoint, whether that be being raped, whether that be trying to repel against a system that took them from one land in small groups to control them here in America. Millions upon millions of people perished. And we can talk about one category, such as lynching. But again, healthcare disparities, for instance, COVID-19, current events. We have millions of people who may be infected with COVID-19, but even to this day in 2020 with this pandemic, we understand it is black people that are more negatively impacted by COVID-19 based on healthcare disparities. More black people are killed based on heart disease, diabetes, and health ailments simply because they're poor and don't have insurance. There are a lot of people who may be negatively impacted by it, but a lot of white folks that start off in this world poor move out of that system. Let me give you an example. There are 4 million births every year in America. 4 million births. Out of those births, a percentage, white, black, start off poor. Within 2 to 3, 5 years of that child being birthed, white people progress out of poverty, a lot of them. A lot of black people remain in poverty. A lot of that poverty is induced based on jobs, right? A lot of that in poverty is also induced based on 1 in 5 black men being locked up, arrested for a low-level possessionary offense, so they're no longer around to have an income with the mother of their child for X number of period of time, so that induces poverty. We have all types of areas that systemic racism, systemic discriminatory treatment of people based on the color of their skin negatively impacts them and leads to death, premature death. And it doesn't have to be about fatal shootings. There are many different categories. Once you add up all those categories, you get a better picture of how black people and white people in this country are living 2 different lives, 2 different standards, and we have to figure out how to make sure we bridge that gap. That is what we're talking about.
Amen. Hallelujah. The church say amen. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
So Brian, do you have a report?
Sadly, I do. I also have well, first off, I would say, I don't know if Rita's still on, but I just want her to know that I've been rallies and some marches and so forth, and we have been hearing Alton's name here in Baltimore, and so I just, I just wanted her to know that he's not forgotten, it's not gone. He's still in our hearts here. And then I wanted to say something that's a little off the some of what people have been talking about here tonight, but it's something I just learned about, and it's something that kind of bears on the systematic nature of what goes on, and the tendency of the police department to protect themselves. And that is, I learned recently that watching John Oliver, and he was talking about facial recognition. And he was saying that during the Freddie Gray riots, police took the film that was made about those riots, ran it through facial recognition using the Maryland driver's license database, got all those names, used that to search for warrants, and then went out and arrested those and charged those people, essentially for participating in a protest. and we're going to see that again. And that's why, you know, in a way, I'm thankful for COVID, because all the people that I see at protests now have these masks on that are covering enough that you won't be able to do facial recognition on them. But you know, I want people to be aware of that, and to think about the extent to which our daily lives are penetrated by this corrupt system. So those are just the two things that I wanted to do outside of what I do here every week, which is talk about the lives that we lose. You know, we're in a struggle against a system of violence and a system that objectifies people and exploits people, and we're fighting to save. And we didn't save lives. This past 2 weeks, we lost 13 people here in Baltimore to homicide, and I'm just going to say their names, and if y'all would might check me back on that, I would appreciate it. Michael Montgomery, 27.
Michael Montgomery, 27.
James Fall, 31.
James Fall, 31.
Tyra Womack, 57.
Tyra Womack,
57.
Damon Bailey, 36.
Damon Bailey, 36.
Gerald Jones, 30.
Gerald Jones, 30.
30.
Tarico McCain, 22.
Tarico McCain, 22.
Rico McCain,
32.
32.
D'Angelo Kelly, 22.
D'Angelo Kelly,
D'Angelo
22.
Kelly, 22.
Michelle Tanizaka, 18.
Michelle Tizaka,
Naka,
18.
18.
Antoine Phillip, 39.
Antoine Phillip,
And
39.
Phil, 39.
Brian Crawford, 39.
Brian Crawford,
Brian Crawford,
39.
39.
Roderick Daniels, 51.
Roderick Daniels,
Roderick Daniels,
51.
Tanisha Tyree, 34.
Tanisha Tyree,
Tanisha Tyree,
34.
34.
Kathleen Walker, 73.
Kathleen Walker, 73.
Walker, 73.
Aaron Headspeth, 64.
Aaron Heads,
Headsmith, 64.
Thank you.
Mike check.
Mike check.
check.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, both of my brothers, for definitely bringing the heat, the smoke, the fire. Thank you, Brother Jonathan, and thank you, Brother Ken. Ken, I might adopt both of y'all for West Wednesday every week. But I just thank y'all at the end of the day, and I want to thank the West Coalition as always. Thank you, Ben, for doing the tedious job of controlling all of this. I know sometimes it can get out of control. I just thank y'all for everything. I just want to thank y'all. I wanted to thank all the visitors that probably had to log off now. But at the end of the day, you know, I wouldn't want to wish anybody into this club. And it's just, you know, it's just about winning. And to me, winning is changing these lynching laws, even though I want to, you know, get full accountability for my brother. And I'm never going to stop. Until my coffin drops, I'm never going to stop fighting different ways. I believe one day that I will win. If I don't win, I believe my children, his children will carry the torch, and one day we will have accountability. But meanwhile, most importantly, if we don't change these lynching laws that exist today, I won't want to see another family go to the cycle of pain. I'm really feeling good that finally I'm getting to see that these officers are, even if they don't even if the charges don't even stick, that they are being called out, that they are being held accountable, right? So at least we're seeing that part. I want to see more. We got a whole lot more work to do. But I just want to, you know, thank everybody for your time. And at the end of the day, you know, West Wednesday, we normally sometimes just go to 8, but we went a little bit over. And that's fine, because guess what? Right now, with everything that's happening in the world, everything is just going on nonstop. Even in the city with all those names that Brother Brian just read off. It's horrifying. I heard somebody's grandmother and grandfather.
73 years old.
I heard babies as young as like 18, somebody 74, somebody like it's just ridiculous. And then I heard on the news that right now the number is up higher than what it was last year. This is utterly ridiculous. But again, I'll say and echo what Ken said and Jonathan said. Like at the end of the day, all this stuff is running together. And to me, it's modern day lynching. To me, the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It didn't fail us. It's doing what it's been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. And again, I want y'all to take in mind everything that everybody presented tonight. Take in what Alton Sterling's auntie said. That like she had to go through this type of thing. She got to live with that every day. Taking what Alicia said, using her baby 13 years ago. Her baby was only 17 years old, and she still don't have her son. Like I have a 17-year-old. Okay, I couldn't imagine going through the pain that my sister's going through. I couldn't imagine what Alton Sterling's auntie is going through. You know, I know how it feels to be a sister and all this, but I don't know how I feel to be a mother. I don't want to know. I don't want to be a. I don't want to. That's why I do what I do, because the work is important. Filled with my sister Natasha. Her sister actually survived a car crash, right? Going around a bus, she crashes into a pole, and the officers just come and gun her down. And if that wasn't enough, then the media just killed our loved one names as if they got what was deserved for them. It's just sickening and sad. But again, fighting with these brothers, like my brother that took their time, and I want to thank y'all. Y'all time is very important. But I thank y'all when I called and I gave y'all the invitation and I asked you guys, y'all know I'm committed into this work. And even sometimes we get on this platform and sometimes some of the things we may not agree on, right? But at the end of the day, we can agree that all this work that we're doing is so important, right? And we all are needed in this fight. One person cannot fight this big fight, because guess what? If one person could afford it, and one, we wouldn't even be going through this hell right now. Like if Malcolm X could afford all this by himself and just stopped at Malcolm X, we wouldn't be going through this. Harriet Tubman could fight it all by herself, and the list goes on about ancestors and people. We can all fight this together, but we cannot fight this alone and apart, you know, in our own egos and shallows and things like that, because we can't agree on the conversation. We can agree that nobody deserves to be brutally murdered. We can agree that something definitely needs to change. I don't care how we change this thing, but we can all agree something needs to change, and it needs to change as of yesterday. And I like what Ken said about white folks. Y'all gotta do y'all own job. Like y'all gotta go deep down inside y'all. I done had Megan on here, a white woman, tell y'all about what to do. We all got a lot of work to do, and I just thank you guys for listening, tuning in. I thank the audience for listening, the West Wednesday family, just everybody, the viewers, thanks for y'all time. I love y'all, and again, we'll continuously fight and stand. I'm back at work next week, and it's gonna be difficult, because now I gotta go back, whereas though I don't even feel safe. Like I feel more unsafe than I did going out of work 3 months ago. I feel worse, and I gotta return back. But this is the society in which we live in. You get what I'm saying? So it's all about us keeping safe, doing the right things. And at the end of the day, it's about your conscious mind. If you see something wrong and you don't say nothing, you are guilty. Just like those officers that sat around and watched innocent men and women be beat down to the ground, murdered, and they laugh and joke about it. Guess what? You're going to have to answer to that one day. So at the end of the day, let your conscience lead the way. And it's sad, because it's a lot of, that's why hell is empty, because it's a lot of demons and devils running around right here on earth. It's empty. It's a sad, the type of world we live in. But at the end of the day, we are the real change. So again, I just thank each and every last one of y'all for pouring in. I want y'all to tune in and listen to this very powerful video. And it was when I was at City Hall, and my brother Torquay talked about freedom and what that really looks like. What does freedom look like? And how does it really feel to actually say that you're free? And I'm agreeing with this brother 100%. To say I'm not free, I'm just sorry. That's just my opinion. I just want y'all to listen to the spoken word. And again, thank you guys. And we'll be tuning in to West Wednesday at 360 weeks on next week. Thank you guys so much. Love you all. Live to love, love to live. I love you all. And at the end of the day, we can all agree that real change is on the way, and we definitely need it right now. Thank you.
Take
Mic
care.
check.
Mic check, mic check.
Mike, check.
Thank you for everybody coming out tonight. I have to first thank Tawanda Jones and the rest of her family and everybody who's been out here diligently. It takes a lot of heart to look evil in the face every day. And that's what happens when somebody loses their life to the state, their loved one, to the state. They have to wake up with that reminder every day that their loved one is gone. And that is seeing pure evil. It's not witnessing it vicariously through a video on YouTube or anything like that. That is coming face to face with the devil in a way. Chairman Fred Hampton said once that power was the ability to define phenomena and then act in a desired manner. And the phenomena that we are experiencing now, on front page news, is the loss of life at the hands of state-sanctioned animals and murderers. And the manner that we are calling people to act in, the desired manner, is to seek some type of retribution, whether it be through the courts, whether it be through identifying exactly who did these things, these suspects. And it's not happening. So I've had to spend nights trying to get myself to understand exactly what freedom is. And I charge everybody here, if you aren't already thinking about it, what is freedom? And I've had to define it for myself. And this is what America has to do right now on this day. And in these times where everything is on front page news that's happening, you have to define freedom for yourself. So freedom, for me, for Tariq Touré, is the ability to pursue life, liberty, that they wrote down when they were excluding us as 3/5 human beings. Right? The ability to pursue those things without being held back by isms and phobias.
That's right.
And right now we're being held back and shot down because of isms and phobias. Pick one. So I want to make sure that in 100 years, that this moment is written down, and they'll talk about these people that were standing right here fighting for it. Just like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they were talking about SNCC. They were talking about all these people protesting, and they were middle-class people at home, shaming them, saying, man, them kids just making noise, them people just complaining. And next thing you know, 50 years later, they're enjoying the same things that they were fighting for. So today we want to take that thing 10 times further. We want freedom. I don't want civil rights. I don't want civil rights. And I'm even asking you for a human right, because I already know I'm human. That's my right to take. What I'm saying, I'm demanding for everybody here, I don't care what you look like, where you come from, whatever your background is, we demand freedom in America. Freedom, pure, unadulterated freedom. You know what freedom looks like? Freedom looks like that 6-year-old white kid that got shot. In 48 hours, the police came and got those 2 officers. That's what freedom is. His parents being able to feel that mourn, that grievance, and be in their pain. And next thing you know, they make one call. Look, y'all got to do something about my son. He just got shot. That's what freedom look like. They say, yes, ma'am. We'll go get him right now. And those police officers are in jail.
That's right. Say it, sir.
And you see what happens with Laquan McDonald.
Right.
Well, on the ground, you still see puffs of smoke because they're playing target practice with this black man's body. And then they talk about good cops. Now, how many good cops are right there saying, stop shooting, and then after that, they went ahead and took erased the videotape. How many good cops were right there watching that murder? And next thing you know, they want to say, oh, well, you know, there's just a bad apple out of the bunch. No, we're calling out the whole orchard. Flat out. So what happens when small things happen? Somebody get their teeth kicked in. Where are these good cops at?
Right.
So I don't believe in it. I don't want to leave that with y'all. I thank everybody out here for what is freedom. Define freedom for yourself, and then die on that.
That's right.
Die on that definition. Be willing to die and lay everything you have and believe in down on that definition of freedom from this day on.
That's right.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a blessed night.